It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Do you want me to wear a mask?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Without it. Yeah.
Okay. Let me know if you change your mind.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. Nitish.
Uh-huh.
Can you spell that for me?
Nitish.
Just like it sounds.
Exactly.
How's your day going?
Yeah, it's been pretty good so far. Just came back from a midterm, so
Yeah?
thought I'd try this out.
We've been talking about majors. What's your major?
Math and computer science.
Math and computer science?
Yeah, it's called mathematics and computation, but basically take some courses from computer science and from math.
Okay. Sounds intense.
So far, it's good. We'll see when the rest of the quarter goes by.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure if you're up to speed yet, but we are practicing street epistemology.
Okay.
And basically, thank you so much. Street epistemology is a conversation tool that creates a space for us to be able to explore and examine the sufficiency of the reasons and the reliability of the methods that you're using to arrive at a conclusion that you think is likely true. Mm-hmm. So, and it's being live streamed right now. Mm-hmm. So are you okay with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for stopping.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
All right, so you chose this question here.
Yeah.
All right. We could talk about this, or you can come up with your own claim that you think is true also. It's not limited to the suggestions that we have.
Okay. So I guess kind of like a similar question, but not exactly that.
Okay.
I feel like when we're talking about believing true things, it's really hard to define truth. And that seems kind of like a loaded question in that sense, but so
how would you like to phrase it?
Okay, so first I guess we have to examine what constitutes truth and an explanation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want the question to be what is truth?
Sure.
Or how do we arrive at truth, or it could be anything like that.
Yeah. What is truth, and does something have to be true to be useful, I guess?
Okay. Does something have to be true to be useful?
Yeah.
That's interesting. You want to talk about that?
We can talk about that.
Okay. Does something have to be true to be useful? Okay. And what do you think the answer is to that?
Okay, so I guess for me personally, I don't believe in any sort of absolute truth at all.
Okay. Absolute truth. Can you tell me a little bit about what absolute truth is compared to regular truth?
Oh, sure. So I guess everything generally is relative in terms of what we know. Meaning, like, so let's say we're a baby, right? We're born, and it seems like everything that we've learned is through our senses, right?
Okay.
And so I guess people try to make a distinction between things that are a priori, meaning, you know, something that you've known before. They can know without experiencing anything, know something beforehand, versus something that you can find out after observation.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is most of what we think is true is based on what we observe with our senses?
Exactly.
Okay. And so is that absolute truth, or are you making a distinction between that truth and so what else?
Okay. So in terms of absolute truth, I wouldn't call that absolute truth, just because we've often found that, you know, everything that we've seen through our senses isn't exactly right. Our senses are fallible in the way that, let's say I'm on drugs, right? And I'm looking at that tree over there. It doesn't look like a tree.
Okay.
And what if that same state in that we can't see that tree as a tree, that's just us right now. And so it's really weird because our whole understanding of the world is bound to our senses specifically and how we interpret those senses. So if I see that tree, I see it in a certain shade of brown, which my brain perceives as brown. Your senses might perceive it differently, I couldn't say. But also that's specifically human, right? So let's say you see a bat.
It's hard for you to tell what I'm seeing.
Exactly. I can't quantify that you're seeing the same exact thing that I'm seeing.
Okay.
Yeah. We might see, I mean, we can make some assumptions, but nothing that's concrete, right?
Okay. And so where does the absolute truth come in with this?
So absolute truth would be something that we can know for certain. And for me, that's, again, only like we can only prove our own existence, but we can't prove anything after that. What I mean by that is there's like the whole Descartes thing where, I think therefore I am, right? Essentially in the idea that your capacity to think, quote unquote, or your capacity to at least do whatever you're doing, that predicates that, you exist, right? Anything to say that our logic or our sense of logic and our sense of the sense of rules that our mind, projects onto the world or whatever is any sort of truth, it's hard to say what truth and falsity is when it seems like you can't prove anything past that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. There's a difference between something that we think is true based on our senses and something we know that we can know for certain that is not based on our senses.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's a world out there which is beyond our senses. I can't tell you what that world is because it's beyond our senses.
But you know it's there. You know it exists.
I know that it may exist.
Okay. So it may not exist.
It's like I couldn't tell you that unicorns don't exist because I don't have concrete proof that unicorns don't exist. But I could tell you that unicorns probably don't exist. They may not exist. Sure, they may exist. I might see a unicorn that might change my mind. But
okay.
As far as I know, there probably is a world out there that we can't experience.
Okay. And there's no way to have access to that world?
Definitely, yeah. At least, I mean, I couldn't say concretely because I don't know if there might be a way to. It's like, again, maybe with drugs, right? Let's say that you didn't expect to see the world in a specific way or have your mind be in a specific state. But then you try a drug, right? And now your mind has shifted states and you see something, you experience something that you thought wasn't previously possible with your faculties, right? So let's say a scientist comes up with something and you're able to experience a new sense. I can see a new color all of a sudden. And I previously thought that, that color was never accessible to me with our current abilities to,
Right, your perception keeps you from being able to see the whole scale.
The whole scale.
Kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. How does that existence of that possibility of that world existing, how does that affect your behavior?
Okay, so definitely I can't be a complete skeptic, right? I can't say that anything's not true, therefore it's not valuable. So I guess that's where the second question came in, right? Does it have to be true to be valuable?
Right, or useful, yeah.
Or to be useful, right? And that's not necessarily the case, right? So when you have nothing, when you can't prove anything is true, right? Your whole value system is kind of just gone. So you have to figure out you have to put in place a value system, or else I guess you don't have there's no meaning for anything, right? I guess the question would be, why do we have to have value in the first place? And I don't think we have to have value, but I guess for me, it's like, you can kind of phrase in terms of why not commit suicide, right? I know, like, suicide is generally considered a bad thing for a certain reason, right? But for me personally, I feel like experience has more value than not being able to experience anything. I don't know what happens after death. I couldn't say. But as far as I know, and I feel like it's a reasonable assumption to make, is that after death, I don't think there's going to be any sort of, I don't believe there's anything after death. I feel like maybe we just go flat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather experience all there is to experience and, try figuring out something, even though my process or my ability to figure out those things might not be right. At least I can experience something over not experiencing something.
So it sounds like you kind of want to get out of life of what you know you have. Like you don't know about the afterlife, mm-hmm. but you know that there's this life, mm-hmm. and it's valuable to you, mm-hmm. To have as many of those experiences in this life, the life that you know that you have now.
Exactly. You put it way better than I could have.
So, in regards to this,
yeah.
Does something have to be true to be useful? Mm-hmm. Now that we've kind of identified the different ideas behind what truth is, mm-hmm. if we're using your definition of absolute truth, this mm-hmm. world that is probably out there or maybe out there, mm-hmm. Using that definition, how would you answer this question?
Okay, so we only have access to our version of the world. And so we'd have to create a whole system based on our interpretation of the world versus what actually is. So I may never know what actually is. I probably will never know what actually is, right? But what's useful to me is it's really a hard word to think of, but I think that I'm a feeling individual, right? I have certain feelings based on my experiences, right? And I guess I do enjoy my current state of being, and I do enjoy the whatever feelings happen based on those experiences, right? So I can continue doing that, and I can continue creating a system of usefulness based on, I wouldn't say exactly hedonism, but based on experience as a foundation for what's valuable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So experience is what you're using to determine whether something is valuable or not?
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have an example of something that it's not useful for believing the truth of it?
Not useful. Okay.
Like the opposite of this?
Sure, definitely. So it's going to be belief in the non-obvious. So what I mean by that is, what I mean by obvious is, so I'm sitting here with you right now, mm-hmm. right? And I can see this microphone. And so this microphone appears to exist to me, right? Maybe if I turn around, like it just disappears. But as far as I know, it's right here. Now, let's say we're talking about, again, a unicorn, right? Mm-hmm. If I know it's not useful for me to put any value or put any like mental effort into believing that unicorns exist, right? Because I've never seen a unicorn before, and it's not something that I don't want to put any value in something that I can't see for myself, or I can't deductively reason out to be the case. Okay. It's so far of a stretch where unless there's like, an argument which necessarily follows that, hey, unicorns exist, I don't really care that a unicorn is out there, or if it's out there or if it's not.
If unicorns did not exist, it's not useful for you to believe that they do exist.
If unicorns did not exist, yes, that's one way to put it, yeah.
Okay.
But also, if unicorns did exist, but there was no way for me to find out whether or not unicorns existed, it's still not useful to me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because why?
because if I can't experience it or it never affects me directly, right? What's the point in its use to me?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're kind of thinking in what's useful for you personally. What if we make that a little bit more broad, like useful for humanity or useful for human flourishing, or
Okay.
and it maybe doesn't necessarily affect you personally? Would that be a possibility to for something to be not useful, to believe it if it's not true?
I think there's probably definitely exceptions. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but generally, if it is going to have some sort of use to me, in the conceptual sense, like unicorns, I just can't think of having any use to me, if they do exist or if they don't exist. But let's say the concept of, I don't know, world peace, right? The systems for that, I don't know how all that's going to work, if it can work, if it's possible at all. But definitely, I believe we can strive to get there, and because the process is still useful in and of itself, right? Making steps towards something is still useful, even if we might not get the exact result that we wanted, depending on whether or not the end goal is useful. How do I explain it? Depending whether or not the end goal is useful in the broad sense.
Gotcha. So like the ends versus the means type thing.
Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Are you still doing okay on time?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I don't,
Just
yeah.
want to check in. So you're using your definition for true. How confident on this scale? So this is 100% confidence. This is 0% confidence.
Okay.
Where would you put yourself on this scale for this being true?
I've never actually thought about this question that deep before. To be honest, I'd probably put myself around there.
Okay, so not very confident.
Yeah, I'd say I'd have to examine all the different implications that it has, and have to really work out my argument. But right now, I don't think, if you were to ask me to explain every small part of it, I don't think I'd have a good explanation for it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your confidence is based on your inability to come up with examples?
Not examples, but also examine all the edge cases. So I'm sure this statement, even though it seems fairly simple, there's a lot of implications that it has, and making sure that every one of these implications is consistent with each other.
Okay.
That everything makes sense, because if one thing doesn't make sense, then the whole thing is wrong, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, the answer to this is yes, and you're about 30% confident?
Oh, so the answer to this is no.
Okay.
And I'm around 30% confident.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say that you're 70% confident that the answer is yes?
No. So it's not just a no or yes situation.
Got it.
It's no
Okay.
and I don't know versus yes and I don't know.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. So, no, and you're 30% confident in your no answer
Exactly.
to that. Okay, gotcha. Is there anything that you would have to be shown to make the scale go down?
To make the scale go down.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Let's see. So I can't think of a counterexample right now, but any sort of counterexample that immediately make it go to zero, right? But I'd say something that would lessen my faith a little bit in that is, it's hard to think about. Yeah, I feel like it's either an all or nothing situation as far as I'm concerned. So it's either 30%, it can get stronger, but if there's anything that contradicts what I've been thinking, it'd probably go down to zero until I can reformulate an argument that kind of goes around that case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like 25% is not in the cards.
It's really difficult to say because I feel like trying to think about it now, I don't know exactly, but maybe if something came to me and then I did happen to go to 25%, I'd know it then, but I don't know it now.
Got it. Okay. You mentioned there would be some things that would make the scale go the other way.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Can you think of something that would raise your confidence?
So definitely more claims that are that I guess fit with my personal system that are again consistent with this as well. So something to support the idea that does something have to be true to be useful, and if the answer is no, and there's a claim that helps support that specific question, and it's also consistent with my belief system, then I feel like the scale would go up. So
okay.
Yeah, it's really hard to think of a specific example again. Yeah.
No, that's okay. No, I appreciate your honesty and your openness about not necessarily having examples at the ready. I think I applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah. What about the testability of this? Is there a way to test whether something has to be true to be useful?
Well, I don't think there is a way to test that, just because use and truth is completely subjective to me.
Okay.
So it depends on the person, and there's no, controlled experiment that you can really do to say, is this true or is this useful? I know everyone has their own reasonings for things, but maybe on a personal level, there's probably some sort of experiment that you could do for yourself to say whether or not something is true or useful. For truth specifically, it's if something keeps consistent with your most fundamental ideas of truth. So if I have a fundamental idea about truth being, for example, my existence is true.
It's true that you exist.
It's true that I exist.
Okay.
And if there was something where I was able to branch off from, it's true that I exist, and say for certain that it's true that I exist implies something else, right? Then that would also be part of that absolute truth.
Okay. Okay. You said earlier that you said truth is subjective.
Yeah.
Now, are you using the same definition for truth as we were a second ago? When you said that it's the world that may be out there that we may not have access to, or you're using that definition with truth being subjective?
Well, not necessarily. So truth being subjective, as in the useful truth. So the useful truth is subjective for me in terms of like what we see, our immediate senses, right? The absolute truth generally should be true for everyone. I'm sure people have different opinions about it, obviously. But I feel like the absolute truth is so small, and it also does encompass the idea that the world, so there's two statements, that we exist, and there's a world out there that we can't know about.
Okay.
And so those two are part of the absolute truth for me, versus the useful truth, which is whatever we're doing in our day-to-day lives.
So something could be useful and not necessarily be true.
Exactly. Yeah. That's pretty much all I had to say.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
It was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, you as well.
Nitish.
Nitish?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome talking to you too. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, no problem.
We're probably going to be here for a little while longer if you want to come back. I'm not sure if we have anybody waiting to come up. There's whenever the idea of truth comes up, we use this thought experiment with these Tic Tacs.
Okay.
So, and you could use this in your own conversations with your friends or whatever, whenever the question comes up about absolute truth or not. But basically, the thought experiment goes, do you agree that there's either an odd or even number of Tic Tacs in this box by the definitions that we use when we talk about odd and even?
Yes.
So there's either an even or an odd number.
Yeah.
Okay. If somebody were to walk up to our conversation and they disagreed with that. How would you respond?
I'm guessing they'd argue something along the lines of you could have half a tic tac.
Right.
And what constitutes a tic tac?
Right. Yeah, and that's why I was saying by the definitions that we use of odd and even.
Yeah.
So another way to look at it is how could we find out if there's an odd or even number in here?
So first we'd have to figure out what's a tic tac. Based on what's a tic tac, we can quantify a unit of tic tac. And from there, we have a notion of odd or even defined based on these units.
Right.
And so if we all have a consensus on the bottom definitions, then the odd and even thing should be fairly easy to agree upon. Yeah.
So how would we find out if we have an odd or an even number in here?
Like through counting or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say that we counted them out and there were 50 in here.
Yeah.
I counted them 1,000 times, you counted them 1,000 times, and we agree that, yeah, there's 50 Tic Tacs in here. And if somebody were to walk up and say that there is an odd number of Tic Tacs in here, and that it's true for them that there's an odd number and truth is subjective, how would you respond?
Well, so when I say truth is subjective, when I say truth is subjective, there's a difference between, it's weird to say this, difference between saying crazy, what makes someone crazy versus a quote-unquote rational person is how they define their methodology for analyzing the world. So, I mean, they could say that definitely, but then if they use that same principle of odd and even, right, and they apply it to somewhere else in the world and it contradicts, right? If you have a contradicting system, your methodology is also contradicting. And so that's what makes you quote unquote crazy. But if you try to keep your system consistent, so you have a set of rules and you use a set of rules per person.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, so instead of calling them crazy, if we just said that they were mistaken, why would they be mistaken if they were to say that there's an odd number of Tic Tacs in here if we both counted them and they counted up to be 50?
Okay, so first we talk about the definition of odd and even, right? So we'd say, I guess the mathematical definition, we could say odd is a number that fits, there exists a number n such that the number of Tic Tacs would be represented as 2n plus 1. So if that statement's true, then there's an odd number of Tic Tacs. And if it could be represented as a multiple of 2, then there's an even number of Tic Tacs. And so that would be our definition. Now, we have...
Let's say they agreed with that. Let's say they agreed with that definition.
Okay.
That odds are 1, 3, 5, 7. Evens are 2, 4, 6, 8, and on and on and on.
Okay.
If they agreed with that definition, and they still said that it was true for them that it was an odd number in the box, why would they be mistaken?
Okay, so there's multiple ways to show them that they're mistaken, I guess. Is one, we can show that if we did use their line of reasoning, if we did say that 50 was odd, and we continued with that and applied the same system of how we got 50 was odd to other numbers that they might think is, even, for example. For example, we agreed that 2 was even, right? So if we show that 50 and 2 have the same properties for being odd, but we consider 50 as, 50 for being odd, we consider 50 as odd but 2 is even, then what are we actually talking about when we're talking about odd and even? I don't know if that answers the question.
I think so.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. It's just a fun thought experiment.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I really had fun talking with you.
Yeah, you too. I think Reed might be here a little bit more often now that school's in.
Okay.
So yeah, if you, we offer one of these puzzle pieces to take. You can choose whatever color you want. And the idea is that you come back for another talk and you just build out the set. Okay. So you're welcome to take one of those.
I do like blue.
and come back and have another conversation.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And get a card, one of these. It's got Reed's information on the back.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And yeah, thanks so much for stopping. That was awesome.
Nice talking
Really
to you.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just take this right here.
All right. I think I'm going to enjoy some coffee for a second.
Ooh, have fun with that.
Enjoy the rest of your day and good luck with your studies.
Oh, you-